हेलो एवरीबॉडी, नमस्कार, गुड मॉर्निंग, गुड आफ्टरनून, गुड इवनिंग, वेयर एवर यू आर। आप सबका एक बार फिर से लेट मी वेलकम यू। आप सबका स्वागत है ऑन दिस शो क्वेश्चंस ऑफ लाइफ। लॉट ऑफ पीपल हैव बीन सेइंग दैट they also have lots of questions to ask, and I've been generally talking to people, and there is one question which actually everybody wants to know, but nobody wants to talk about it. And this is something which has been a dilemma for last couple of centuries, especially uh, in the world, in the modern civilization, which is about sex. People are generally scared of two things: A, talking about sex, and getting into the depths of this natural phenomenon called sex. So, Desh, welcome. And
Thank you.
today we are actually doing a very daring and a very, very important topic, which is why people are afraid of sex. Just to give a little background of this, if you see, when social media came, people thought that now they have freedom to discuss anything they want, which they generally can't discuss in their families, with friends, openly, because then people look at you in a very different way. But after social media, it has become more difficult to talk about sex, but it's become very easy to display perversion. Today, the society is overloaded and over communicated with perversion. If you look at the kind of journalism which is taking place, if you look at all the OTT platform, Netflix, wherever, they are full of perversion, whether it's Game of Thrones or Sacred Games in India, or you look at that, all the topmost, the big OTT shows, billion-dollar OTT shows, are full of perversion. Perversion does not only mean sex, but it's also a lot of violence, a lot of gore, and at the core, there is a lot of sex in it. So we are expressing a lot of perversion on one hand. On the other hand, people are scared to A, celebrate sex, and second, discuss sex. So I want to talk to you today more in the context of India, because in Bharatiya Sanskriti, sex has always been a very open thing. In fact, we have been pioneers when it comes to sex. A, how to express sex, when it is required to control it, how to control it and transform it into a different kind of energy. In fact, in Hindu cults and culture, in lots of places, you will find how to use the sexual energy, convert it into spiritual energy. It's full of that. There are so many swamis. The tantric people do it all the times. The entire science of tantra, which is so misunderstood in this country and the world now. Why is it that despite pornography being the largest selling product in the world, despite spending billions of dollars in expressing the repressed sexual energy through perversion and through all these OTT shows and movies and the pornographic material, why human beings are so scared of sex, which is one of the most beautiful things in the world, most needful things in the world. The whole humanity runs because of that. Everything at the core is sex, whether it's money or power, everything is expressed through it. If you take out the sex from human beings or from life, there's no life. So something which is directly a biological origin, which is like the Gangotri, sex is the Gangotri of life. If life is Ganga, why people repress sex, why they are so scared of sex? What are your views?
Uh, it is a very interesting topic actually today, and it is quite daring, like you were saying. And see, the problem is the being scared or being in love with something. Like I personally feel has a lot to do with our like I would say fetish and obsessiveness obsession with morality. हमने एक we have made our own benchmarks. What is good? What is bad? What is this? What is that? So based on that, like we like either fall in love with something, or we say, okay, this is divine, and we say, okay, this is demonic or bad, or like immoral, based on certain benchmarks that we have created. And the problem is that morality, so I think what we are saying is morality the right way to live our life, right? Because like at the end of the day, sex is bad because some morality says it is bad. Like, otherwise, like you were saying, the entire life springs from sex itself. Now, and sex, like if you really look at it, is actually a very physical way of including someone within myself, right? And being with someone. Now, like how can that be bad? Like it becomes bad only when somebody says, okay, like it is very immoral to do this, and because our morality benchmark says, such a thing. Now, the problem with this morality, stuff is that, like, it is at the like it is actually just a pretense, right? So if you look at all the people who have said, "Okay, thou shall not kill," they are the people who have destroyed natives in at least 3 continents, just based on that, just based on their god versus somebody else's god. They never like believed in that. That is why those are the cultures from where the Victorian culture and all those things, the churches, then the other like religions and belief systems, that this idea that sex was bad came through. But the thing is, those people who are saying that sex is bad, they are actually the people who were actually more obsessed with sex because they were trying to repress it. The more you repress something, the more it comes out. The thing is, just to sit next to it. So if you are sitting next to someone, like in a very natural way, then, that does not become an enemy. That does not become an adversary. But the moment you are sitting across it in an adversarial position, then it becomes an adversary. Then you have to repress the other thing. Then you have to put the other person down. Otherwise, you're okay. And that is how we, as in the Indian civilization, has approached it. When Vatsyayana was like writing about Kama Sutra, like he was not like looking at sex as a adversary. He was looking at it, just like a researcher. That there are like so many types of like male genitalia, so many types of female genitalia, so many different types of sex that people can have. He was just looking at it from a very, very research oriented like eye. And when he did that, it was like it became very easy. So it didn't have to be an adversary for him. So it didn't have to be something that he had to repress or put down. And there's a very interesting story from Swami Vivekananda's life, which actually describes this very beautifully. So before Swami Vivekananda had gone to Chicago in 1893, much before that, when he was still a very young Swami, he had gone to Maharaja of Jaipur for some obligation that he had. Maharaja of Jaipur had, like arranged for a very nice banquet and, like party, that kind of a thing. So Tawayaf was called. So that was the normal culture at that time. So the most expensive, the best Tawayaf in the kingdom was called. And when Swami Vivekananda came to know about this, he was shaken. He said, "No, I can't do that," because the wife was not just a dancer but also a prostitute, and that's how they were looked at, right? So he went and locked himself into a room, and he wouldn't come out. And Maharaj of Jaipur was very disturbed, because like if he was to cancel everything and turn her back, then that would be a bigger problem for him. So everyone went to him, but Swami Vivekananda just won't come out of the room. And the wife started singing a song, which was actually a very devotional song. And she was just trying to say how she's just a dirt and, in front of the Swamiji. And so when Swamiji, heard that beautiful voice and that devotion in her voice, he came out and he sat, in front of her, and tears, started coming. So in his diary, it is said that he wrote, and I'll just quote: "A new revelation has been given to me by the divine. I was afraid. Must be some lust within me. That's why I was afraid. But the woman defeated me completely, and I have never seen such a pure soul. The tears were so innocent, and singing and dancing was so holy that I would have missed. And sitting near her, for the first time, I became aware that it is not a question of who is there outside, it is a question of what is." And that changed Swamiji's way of looking things, like in a lot of ways. So in a way, you can say that on that day itself, just for that moment, that the wife became a guru for Swami Vivekananda in that area. And later on, I've read his books, the complete works of Swami Vivekananda, and there he says something about sex to somebody else when he asked a question. He said, like, when you reach a certain level of consciousness, at that time, sex and all these things will fall off automatically, just like eating meat does. So if you reach a certain level of consciousness, you don't have to fight. Like, it just goes away. You know, like we have heard the story of Angulimal, right? Of how this Angulimal was a dacoit, and Angulimal would be in a jungle, and anybody who was crossing that jungle, he would go and attack and loot them and kill them, and then take their finger as a trophy and put it around in the garland. So in today's term, he was the worst serial killer ever, in that era. And when Gautama the Buddha was passing through that jungle, so Angulimal attacked him. At that time, he didn't give any commandments or edicts and said, "Thou shall not kill," or like, "Thou will not hurt anybody." All he did was he raised the consciousness of Angulimal. And thereafter, after some time, after he did, go through his initiation through Buddha, he actually became a sage himself. So you don't need to repress anything. You don't need to put down anything. You just need to sit with it. Just be cautious enough to sit with it and just let it go. But to reach that level is the real question.
Yeah, absolutely. So my understanding is that see, I come back to the same theory. I think human beings never tried to repress sex, but slowly, when the power game started, when the power game started, the best thing to tame animals is to neuter them. You know, you take out somebody's sexual energy and you have half defeated the person. So since the powerful people needed a lot of intellectual, physical, financial, emotional kind of a slavery around them, they started getting involved in this game of sexual repression. If you And how this society operates is there's a very famous, very interesting story about two monks. After graduating from their ashram, they were going back to their hometown, and there was a river they had to cross, and so they crossed the river. There was flood in the river, but they knew swimming, so they met with this woman, a beautiful young girl, and she said, "Hey, listen, gentlemen, in the morning when I came on this side of the river was normal, then it rained, and now it's flooded. So I can't go on the other side. Can you drop me there? Can you pick me up on your shoulders and drop me there?" So one of the monks didn't think anything, picked her up, and he dropped her on the other side, and then they started walking. And after a few days of walking, 3-4 days, they were going long way. So the other monk asked him, he said, "Hey, listen, we had taken an oath never to touch a woman. And forget touching, you carried the woman on your shoulders and you swam with her and you dropped her on the other side. Don't you think you committed a sin? So this monk replied, and he said, brother, I dropped her few days ago, you are still carrying her in your mind.
Beautiful.
That's the problem with the world, that we are carrying it in our minds and we are scared to talk about it, we are scared to discuss this. And I think the biggest problem begins when we are children. The first thing, what is sex? Sex is exploration, because without exploration there is no life. And it's only when you explore, you merge with the cosmic energy, you become one with the cosmic energy. So the best way to discover oneness, the physical oneness, the fastest way is to get engaged in the sexual activity. And this sexual activity can be between anybody, the creator and the created, observer and the observed. So this activity can be between different people, a teacher, student. In fact, honestly speaking, biologically speaking, there's a sexual energy between the mother and a child also.
Right.
Sex does not mean only intercourse. It's a sexual energy. The sexual energy is which is wanting to give life to something. And therefore
Right.
the exploration comes. And the purest and the best form of that exploration is when we are children. Children want to explore each other's body.
Right.
And that's exactly when we separate a boy and a girl. When they can really appreciate each other's body, when they can touch each other's body without any kind of perversion, without any power game in their minds, without even the concept of groping or molestation or anything. A small 3, 4, 5, 6-year, 7-year-old children, when they have no idea about the world, when they can't even distinguish between a boy and a girl, that's the time they touch each other, they want to look at each other, you put them in the bath and you see how beautifully they play with each other. They touch, now it's very difficult to talk about these things, but they touch each other's genitals. They explore, they experiment, and that's how they learn to appreciate. But we start repressing from the stage, and instead of making them learn to appreciate and respect and celebrate the beauty which is called body, we make them start suspecting it. Then entire life they look at it with suspicion. Then they want to explore and experiment or observe it with force, with power. And which is why you'll see any man or woman, I can't talk about women, but I can definitely talk about men. Any man I have come into contact with in this world, of any race, religion, financial status, he goes beyond the clothes. Whatever the public posturing, it doesn't matter. You can be the president of US, you can be the Pope, you can be the best of the priest or the monk or whoever you are in this world. You are lying if you are not seeing beyond the clothes of a woman. Everybody is doing that. Subconsciously he is doing that. Why is he doing that? He is doing that because there is unseen, unexplored, which could have been so natural. And we repress it. Why do we repress it? We repress it like we repress when we repress animals. We repress it for the simple reason because the powerful people need a force of slaves, obedient people. Because sexual energy is very, very dangerous. It can make a man do anything. And now the psychologists and the psychiatrists and the science, everything, it's been proven now. All these, the greatest of the players, the most powerful people, there has been a very strong sexual energy which has been driving them. We may not understand it. It happens very subconsciously. If you read Freud, then the whole Freudian psychology is based on that whatever we do is because of this sexual energy. So that's where I think in India, we experiment, we only know Kama Sutra, but the entire yoga is also based around that if you look at it. Ayurveda is also based around that. It takes you from tamasic to sattvic. The whole, what is tamasic to sattvic? It's both. Tamasic is also food, sattvic is also food, tamasic is also lifestyle. So the whole thing is transforming the sexual energy to creative energy, sexual energy to spiritual energy. And why that? Because after you have given life, after the sexual energy has created, where does it go? Then it has to be engaged in the process of creation, so that ultimately it merges with the one, it becomes oneness. And which is why in the act of sex, there is a feeling of self-abandonment. You abandon yourself. That one moment, that 1 second, one fraction of a second. And that's why we always want to repeat it. But the problem with repetition is that it has diminishing returns.
Right.
Isn't it? So we do not keep, instead of adding value, that's where you see Kama Sutra, Tantra, Tantric, the entire Tantric philosophy is about value addition. Like love ultimately becomes compassion.
Right.
Well, compassion becomes seva. Seva brings in sacrifice, and with sacrifice comes simplicity. And with simplicity, you start understanding the world and the God and the truth and whatever. You cannot get into the process of adhyatma and moksha or mukti or samadhi unless you are a very simple person. Simple means what? There are no complexities left in your life. But when you suppress sexual energy, complexities suddenly take you over. When you transform sexual energy, then it becomes simplicity ultimately. So, complex life versus simple life. But the problem is, a repressed sexual energy has made the entire world so complex. That's why you have anarchy, conflict, chaos, wherever you go. This entire hatred which you are seeing, violence you are seeing. Let's talk about America. Okay, I personally feel, it's my observation, that in Western societies, sex is so repressed. It's just a pretense. Too much of pretense. It's like if you see in lots of places, there is so much of pretense between couples. You must have seen in lots of films. They pretend in parties as if they are so much in love with each other. More they pretend they are in love with each other, more they start hating each other. More they fight with each other. So this pretense that we are liberated and therefore we need to talk a lot about sex actually creates more sexual frustration. So that is what my thought is. I think this repression has created all the problems in the society, and unless and until we express through sex, unless we let the sex be expressed and get transformed, the society will always remain in conflict and violence. Now let me ask you something very something which I in fact want to understand. That why is it that, okay, I understand that in lots of Abrahamic systems, in a lot of Western societies, sex has always been looked at as sin. But in Hindu culture, it was never sin. In fact, if you look at our goddesses, even if you look at Saraswati, Saraswati's body was celebrated. In fact, I had a statue in our house. It was very, very old, my father's or something. And the Saraswati was holding Veena, and she's wearing just a sheer cloth. You can see her body through that, almost naked body through that. The idea was, I was explained that it's because she's so transparent and pure. It was celebration of human body. What happened suddenly that we have started behaving in Abrahamic way, and we have become so touchy about sex that today if you on social media, if I utter a word about it, people start hounding me, and then they start saying, you can't talk about it, you're giving bad name to Hinduism. Now that makes me laugh, but also makes me very angry that you are spoiling the greatness of Hinduism. What do you say about it?
Yeah, I think like that's a very beautiful observation actually, because like over time, even I've seen those people who are who call themselves as activists. They are the ones who are more enraged by all these things, and part of it is like maybe because they think the people who are the opposite forces, they are using their own template to describe and define our world. And that is true also, because if you look at how Wendy Doniger and like other folks in her clique have been doing this. So we'll see that they have been trying to define our gods, goddesses, scriptures, and everything in their own template, and their own template in the sense Abrahamic template. And what that means is that they are trying to create a narrative which is very Western based, which has no Indic ethos based understanding of things. And like you were saying, Goddess Saraswati's, this the Murti was like that. Like, I think we all understood at that time that it is not what is being, what the object is. It is about who's seeing it that really matters. How you see things is who sees things in what way is what really matters. Now, if I am a devotee of Goddess Saraswati, if I am totally in her, then I will see a different thing. Now, but if I am a Wendy Doniger, I'll see a very, very different thing there. And that is the problem that is happening these days, because sex, like you were saying very beautifully, that has always been used as an instrument of dominance. Now, the first thing that all these invaders used to do in India was to come and take away our wives, our our sisters, our daughters, and put them in a slave trade. What is happening in what ISIS is doing with Yazidis is no different from what Muhammad Ghori and other people used to do, like even Babar and other folks used to do with the Hindu women. There was actually no difference between that, and they were always used as an instrument of sex. So when it came to that, the obvious wisdom was that women had to be protected in a way that nobody would see them, because if someone would even see them, then they would actually become some kind of a victim of the sultan or the king at that time. So that was a very important reason why the Victorian or the Abrahamic moral principles or moral ways or sins and things like that came into our world as well. And because what we said was that if we have to save our girls from their eyes, then we'll actually protect them. And an offshoot of that was that, well, if we have to protect them, if anyone actually sees them in any different way, then it is like a bad thing. Then we were not because if you look at the some of the very old books that are written, how people would describe women walking around. They would walk around almost topless. Way back, when the earlier, even missionaries and earlier, Fahin kind of folks from China actually came in. Because at that time, there was no reason for people to go around and sexually repress, women around. So that is why it was very easy for women to be women the way they were. Now, later on, they actually became like an object of lust and therefore an object for protection. And, I just laugh when I look at the whole Victorian, even Islamist, way of looking things, putting burqa and things like that. So what we are doing is, what they are doing there in those societies is that the burden of a man's libido is actually being carried by a woman. It is man who is being aroused, not the woman. But the woman has to pay the penalty for a man's arousal. Why? Because the men have not understood how to actually move beyond their consciousness. So while they are saying in their own way that no, women should be wearing burqa because it is this or that, haram hai, prana hai, all those things. Because burqa clad woman is a very, very pious woman, pure woman and all those things. But at the same time, they are also yearning for a heaven where there are women who are available for sex all the time and they are virgins and things like that. So basically, that is their obsession, that is their dream. It's just that they have given a stamp of divinity somewhere, and they have tried to put in a spin here in this life to make it unavailable for other people. So so it becomes they're ashamed of who they are in this life, but they have put a stamp of divinity for their own lusts in another life. So the thing is, why not be very comfortable with this whole thing in this life itself? Not make it a sin, not make it a sense of lust, but like more as like what it is. Like it is a bodily need of everyone, whether man or woman. In fact, for women, I was there's this society in China. There's this one area in China which is matriarchal. So from ground up, it is built by women. So women are the one who inherit. Women are the one who run the family. So it is very women-based society. Now in that society, what
In Northeast also,
right,
many societies are like this. Yeah.
right, and that I think it's called Muso or Muso, that tribe. So what happens in that tribe is that the woman actually owns the house. All the men are in, well, you can call it, some kind of a like apartment complex, or like if you want to be crude, you can call it as a brothel. Because these like women, what they do is they pick a man, bring him to their house, and then see if they can live with him for some time, and then they drop him back, and then get another guy. So basically, and the children who come out of that like relationship, those are owned by or inherited by women themselves. So they don't. So men are not responsible for that, and women are the ones who own the thing is, even when a society is being structured and run by women, that is also based on sex. You see, so it's not just a society which has been created by men, which has sex as a dominant factor. It is even societies which are created by women. Even there, sex also becomes a dominant factor. So the thing is, it is a bodily need. Now, whether it becomes a normal body need, and a step to divinity, that is on us. Whether it becomes a step towards more regressive ways of lust and dominance and power and other things, that is also upon us. Now, like I see sex in just the same way as I see violence or anything else, even like eating meat or like even normal life. If we are going to divide it into a dichotomy of good and bad, evil and virtue and things like that, then we are always going to be in this rigmarole where we are trying to prove one thing and like unprove the other one. If we are okay with both the things in equal way, because that's how the life is. If there was a creator, if there is a creator, then the creator created everything. Good, bad, ugly, everything was created by the creator, right? Now, how can we view one thing as good, one thing as bad, when both of these things have been created by the creator itself? It's part of the creation. Yeah, so if something was really bad, then the creator should have taken care of that. It's just that in our freedom, the freedom that he gives to us, or freedom that it gives to us in this life, it is whether it becomes a step to divinity or becomes a regression towards dominance and power. And when that happens, then everything is bad.
So, okay. So, I think we have said whatever had to be said. But so, in the closing remarks, what I would, I'm just thinking while you were talking that children, there is no child in the world who doesn't ask, where have I come from? I think where have I come from is one question which never leaves us until our death.
Right.
When we are old, we start asking, where am I going to go from here? And then, then again we are born and we say, where have we come from? Anyway,
Right.
so when the child asks, Mama, Daddy, how I was made, look at the irony of this world, look at the hypocrisy of this world. Just see how stupid this world has become, that almost every parent lies to the child. Every parent lie. In some regressive societies, they would say, how dare you ask something like that? Or they will say, you are too young to know that. Or if they are very broad-minded people, they'll say, beta, when you grow up, we'll tell you right now. Or they will tell some stupid stories, we had ice cream when you were born. And, or Santa Claus brought you, or this angel and the fairy came and gave us. Now, the problem is that we are lying. The whole concept of life in our mind is conditioned as a lie. And the biggest tragedy and the cruelty of human beings is that to the same young child who's asking, where have I come from, he doesn't even want to know whether he's a Christian or Muslim or Hindu. We are telling him, you are a Hindu and Christian and Muslim. We are telling about what is God and why he should pray to God. The concepts which have got nothing to do with the child.
Right.
A child doesn't want to know about these things. A child doesn't want to know whether he's an Indian or an American. A child doesn't want to know anything, but we are telling him, we are forcing him to believe in these things. But we are not telling him where he has come from. It's his birthright to know that what is that energy which has brought him. Second thing is, we want to take him to the entire world. You look at all these, especially well-to-do families, the rich people, the so-called more evolved people. They're taking this little 6-year-old child and taking him all over the world, take him to Louvre, take him to Museum of Natural Science, explaining him complex, stupid issues of the world, when he doesn't even care about it. I have seen parents who are teaching a 5-year-old child about that gourmet food, that what it's made of, why it's made of, what it does to the body. They are telling him taking him to NASA and telling him about Mars and Venus and Saturn and rocket science, when he has no utility in his life of that rocket science. He's not even asking those questions. They are giving him unnecessarily stupid information when he doesn't even care about it. You are feeding a 10-year-old child with so much of mathematics, physics, chemistry, history, geography, all the kind of things which actually make his life dull and boring and take the life out of him. But you are not telling him what he wants to know. Where have I come from? How I have been created? You are not telling him that. Right? That's where I think, that's where the biggest misery of this world lies. And that's where we both, the seed of hypocrisy, the seed of lies, the seed of an artificial, superficial being, what is, and what we desire it to be, that gap, that discrepancy keeps increasing all over life. That's what my personal observation about this world is. And just last but not the least is that the biggest tragedy of India has been that from one of the most liberated societies, which actually celebrated human body in so many ways, look at our sculptors, they're amazing, out of this world. Read Kalidasa if you want to understand human body, if you want to understand the beauty of a naked woman's body. Read Kalidas, read Indian literature, read Indian poetry. It's so beautiful. श्रृंगार रस जो है, लोग क्या दुनिया में मिलेगा इतना अच्छा श्रृंगार रस. लेकिन हमने धीरे 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 मुगल राज में, then in the Christian rule of 200 years by British people, British people are very hypocrite people and most regressive society when it comes to sex. I think the most repressive society, more than Islamic countries, it's very repressive. What it appears to be is not something. See, any society, मैं एक बड़ी अच्छी बात मेरे को किसी मेरे प्रोफेसर ने बोली थी. If you want to understand what a society is suffering from, the easiest test to understand what a society is suffering from is figure out what is their mainstream discourse. If a society is talking a lot about objectification of women, which means that society has America has a very huge problem of objectification of women. You look at all their novels have semi-naked women, all their magazines have semi-naked women, all their film posters have semi-naked women, and
Right.
all the mannequins, wherever you go, advertising is full of semi-naked women. And you
Right.
see the power is the rich people are always walking with 10 semi-naked women. Miss Universe is semi-naked women. The current president of US was also famous for, that's how they have shown power and this thing. So,
Right.
so that's the problem. Anyway, so I think this,
So my thought was that I was trying to say was that
See, the thing is, like you were saying about the kids, right? And, all these things is that the fact is that we are either men or women. But the truth is, we are both.
yeah,
It's a combination of a man and a woman which brought us together. Now, that truth is something that nobody wants to, like explore or look at. And what happens in the Western society, like you were saying, is that they either approach somebody as a woman or a man or a transgender, and they over amplify that. They over amplify that gender thing. Without understanding that no matter what you are, whether you are a man or a woman or transgender or whatever you are in expression of your body and physicality, inside you're a combination of both. You're both a man and a woman. Whether it's your feminine or your masculine, which is coming out, it's a different thing. But the thing is that you are a combination and like oneness of both, and that is the most important thing.
so oneness ultimately, I think every session we have come back to oneness. I think somewhere there's a very strong Indian spiritual DNA in us. So we bring this concept of oneness. So okay, so we had a nice, good discussion on this. I'll appreciate if you have any questions, if you put your replies under this video. You can also participate by sending us questions. If you have any questions, please get involved in this. This is not of commercial venture. It's not for popularity. This is basically to bring into mainstream these philosophical, metaphysical questions of life. I would like to thank all of you for being with us. It's really, really been a great association in last few weeks. We have so many people connecting with us. Friends, in the end, I would appreciate if you can support us, if you can share our links, if you can spread the word around this, and you can also share your questions with us. Drishtikon.com, which Desh runs, and I am with the foundation. We are all engaged in building mainstream narrative, which is Indic mainstream narrative, and we are working as brand ambassadors, soft power of India, taking Indian philosophy, Indian issues, Indian metaphysics to the world. So you can support us just by blessing us, by giving your love, and if possible, you can also financially support us. So we'll see you again next week with another question of life. तब तक के लिए thank you very much. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening.